Hey y'all, this is Vinyl, and thank you once again for joining me for another video. This week, I'm going to show you guys my top 5 favorite pieces that I own in my collection. And y'all, before we get into that, I wanted to do a quick introduction. I feel like when I got into YouTube, I didn't really formally come out and introduce myself. So now that we got a little bit more of a following, now that I feel more at home with you guys here on this YouTube channel, I want to formally introduce myself. My name is Solomon Ordonez. I've lived the majority of my life here in California. Originally, I'm from Mexico City, which I'm really proud of. As you can see in the back, there's a huge Sofubi scene in Mexico, and I'm really proud of that. Kind of came full circle, me getting into Sofubi and knowing that there's a great community in Mexico doing specifically Mexafubi, bootlegs, resin toys, and the huge scene that's down there dedicated to monster toys and art toys in general. So I'm really proud of that. I'm really proud of my people, and I'm happy to be contributing to that as well in my own space as a Mexican American. I recently got into Sofubi, and by recently I mean in the last couple of years. My first piece of Sofubi ever was actually a piece that I bought locally at a store called Zonki here in San Jose, California. It was, I forget the name of the maker, sorry guys, but it wasn't Marusan or Bullmark or anything like that. It was an independent brand, also from Japan. I kind of overpaid for the figure itself. I didn't know anything about Sofubi. I was captured by that piece, and I wanted to get something that resembled Godzilla more accurately. That was before I was into the vintage stuff, so I picked that up, and I started buying random pieces of Sofubi after that I found on eBay for cheap. I think I got myself a total of maybe like 4 pieces until I got my first like Bullmark reissue, which was the classic Godzilla that we come to know with the J-tail. This one was from the 92 Bandai reissue, and from there I started trying to collect more and more Bullmarks, but there were the reissues. I was thinking, oh, if I get something close to the original, it's going to be close to the same thing. Come to find out, after being a year into it, I ended up going back to vintage pieces, and I noticed there's no reissue that really captures what a vintage piece has, but I had to have one in hand to kind of understand that. So fast forward to December 2023, right before the new year, I went into Yahoo Auction and I purchased my first piece of vintage Sofubi. So this was actually the first piece of vintage Sofubi that I ever got. It was this King Ghidorah. I won it for about $76, so at the time I was like, wow, I'm paying so much for a tiny little piece of plastic. But soon enough, I got super hooked on it, and it wasn't until I got the panoramic set, I think it was early January or February of 2024, that I was like, since I got such a really nice piece, such a rare piece for such a good price, it just kickstarted my love and passion for vintage Sofubi. So fast forward a whole year of collecting and finding all these wonderful vintage pieces. I was having a hard time finding more information online, especially on YouTube, regarding vintage Sofubi. There wasn't a lot of videos out there. There was one really cool one that captured my attention, which was made years ago by, I think, Greg. And basically what he was talking about in that video was that nobody cared about vintage Sofubi back, but it definitely captured the spirit of that era, where people were more interested in Marmot, they were more interested in M1, they were more interested in newer stuff that was coming out, kind of similar like today with the whole art toy kind of craze. But he stuck to what he liked, which was vintage Sofubi, and that really captured me. Even these big brands or smaller independent artists, they collect the vintage stuff, so they might produce something that's reminiscent of the vintage items, but it's never going to be the same thing, and they take a lot of homage and a lot of inspiration from these vintage pieces. So I told myself, instead of trying to collect a little bit of everything and feel like it's never ending, why not focus myself into vintage Sofubi, specifically Godzilla, which is more nostalgic to me growing up than Ultraman and the Ultra series. Instead of having a bunch of random pieces, I started selling off all my reissues. And slowly, one by one, I started replacing them with actual original pieces. One big thing that kind of cemented my love for Sofubi and seeing it as an investment was that a lot of these pieces would retain their value or even go up, kind of like a market. You know, one month a piece might sell for 200, the next month it sells for 500, and it keeps going up and down. But overall, you retain a lot of the value. Whereas with reissues, sometimes you buy them brand new from the manufacturer, and when it's time to resell them or get rid of them, you can barely make back your money, if anything. I think that was another reason why I was like, you know what, I'm gonna focus on vintage because that's where it's at. And I noticed that the value of it lasts longer. The quality of it is totally different. Having a piece that has character, that has age, that has a beautiful patina, it's definitely something that's nostalgic. Even though I didn't grow up in that time period to have these toys, it definitely resonates with me and the stuff that I'm into. Just to quickly summarize, I've been collecting vintage, not toys, but like clothing, textiles, home goods, a whole bunch of things related to vintage, like records, all that stuff I've always been a big fan of. Old Nikes, old Jordans, that's stuff that, you know, that I like myself, kind of like these guys right here. I found these in the thrift store years ago. But it just kind of goes to show like my kind of interest, you know, like these kind of things are the stuff that I like. And you know, I'm a big fan of all that, so I think incorporating vintage Sofubi just made sense for me. Hopefully you guys got to learn a little bit more about me. Now without further ado, let's check out these 5 pieces in my collection that I love the most. These are ranked from 5 to number 1, so check them out. Hopefully you like them. All right, y'all, let's get right into it with this Bullmark Rodin. This is my number 5 spot, specifically because of this beautiful colorway. There's about 3 variants, and the one that I have here is more of a marbled type of colorway. It has a mix of silver, metallic blue paint, all on top of this flesh-colored vinyl. It's really an underrated piece. There's no reissue that even comes close to it, so I'm really happy to add this to my list. It's one of my favorite pieces, and it's definitely one that I'll keep for a long time. Continuing on to my number 4 pick is the standard size Bullmark Gigan. I was actually after this piece for about 2 years, and I just kept getting discouraged because I kept getting outbidded. They were getting to a point where they were almost in the thousands, and it was becoming unattainable. This piece used to roughly be for about $200 to $300 a couple years back, and have recently shot up. Mine isn't in the best condition, but just owning a Gigan at this point of age puts it at number 4. Alright, y'all, at my number 3 spot, we have this Bullmark medium size Godzilla. I was actually after this guy before I even started collecting vintage. I just really love the color of the mold and the blue metallic contrast as well. I was lucky to find this guy from a Facebook seller and collector, and he gave it to me for a great price. It was definitely one of those pieces that I wanted in my collection for a long time, and I'm super happy to own it. It's in really great condition as well. Moving on to the second spot is going to be this Bullmark medium-sized Mecha Godzilla. This is actually one of the rarest Mecha Godzillas that Bullmark has to offer, and I was super fortunate to be able to add it to my collection earlier this year. I really love the green paint. It's super reminiscent of the standard size Mecha Godzilla that, as we know, is super rare and hard to find. So at least I was able to add this beautiful miniature size piece to my collection, and I'm super happy that I got it for a really great deal. They normally go for about $1K, and I was happy to find mine for around $600, so definitely a great piece to own in my collection. Alright, y'all, now my number 1 spot, this figure does not need an introduction. You've seen it before. It's the Bullmark Sparking Godzilla. The reason why this is my favorite is because there's no reissue for this piece. This mold, you can only find it in its vintage form, and I love the colors that were chosen for this, with the red back, the metallic blues, and that kind of moss green vinyl that it was molded on. It's such a beautiful piece, and that's why I have it as the mascot of my channel. There's really no other piece like it, and I really love the expression and the dopiness of it all and how whimsical it looks. definitely a piece that I wanted from the beginning when I first started collecting, and I'm glad that I finally own it. I remember when I first started collecting, a reseller offered me one for $800, but I held out, and I was lucky enough to find this guy for only $350. Alright, y'all, I hope you guys really enjoyed that video. For next week, we'll probably look at some of my vintage books that I have, ranging from sonoramas to picture books and everything in between. Maybe a couple of trading cards that relate to Godzilla. So definitely stay tuned. That one's going to be more in depth. We're going to check out each book one by one and show you guys the highlights that are inside. So definitely stay tuned. There's more videos to come. Thank you to everybody for showing me their support, for everybody that comments, everybody that shares, and everybody that keeps subscribing to this channel. We're already broke through 100 subscribers. I think we're on the road to getting to 150. But let's keep pushing. My next goal is 500, and of course after that it's 1,000. But I can't do it without you guys. I can't do it without the community support. So I really appreciate you guys. Thank you everybody for your suggestions and your feedback. It's always valued. I know last week everybody was freaking out that I used a tougher brush on my Sofubi. It's kind of funny, I couldn't find the toothbrush that I normally use that's a little bit softer, but please note nothing happened to the toy. Everything's great. But thank you everybody for your feedback. People were offering different ways of cleaning it that didn't use harmful chemicals or stuff that were more like home remedies. So I definitely appreciate you guys. I'm learning too. Let's learn together and let's create a community where we can all share our insight. Thanks again. I'll see you guys in the next video. This is Vinyl.